Welcome to another fun-filled episode of the weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I'm Cindy Brown. That's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
We have a surprise for you guys. A slight change of plans, just a little bit. We always said that you can watch us on YouTube at War Media at WAR Media. You can. Every Monday and Friday, the videos from our shows will go up first at War Media on YouTube. That's once again at WAR Media on YouTube. And the podcast will go up the following day on Tuesdays and Saturdays. That schedule is still the same. The audio version will go up Tuesdays and Saturdays. But the video versions, you guys are lucky. You can get them Mondays and Fridays on right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again at WAR Media. And you can like, comment, share, subscribe. Sorry, Lakeena, I took your phrase. But
no, it's okay.
But we'll have more access and hopefully more surprises as far as video as we go along here. So remember, every Monday and Friday video, podcasts available Tuesdays and Saturdays. Got it?
Yeah. So
all right.
You can go on Anchor, Google, Spotify, TuneIn, wherever you get your podcast. So it'll all be there. You'll just have more ways to watch or listen to us now. So it's a lot of fun.
Exactly. And speaking of the podcast form, you could go to War on Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. Wherever you download your podcast, make sure you type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. In advance, we'd like to take our bows and thank you in advance. And thank you for your support. Thank you very much for your support.
And we're unapologetically fun.
Yes. Now, Lakeena, on Thursday, since we'll start locally in baseball, opening day took place on Thursday. Both our Chicago teams did not do well. Both the Cubs and the Sox took L's. Let's start off with the Chicago White Sox, Lakeena, as they lose to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim by the score of 4-3. Those White Sox were up midway through the fifth inning, 3-1, thanks to Adam Eaton's first home run of the year, a 2-run shot. Of course, that disastrous eighth inning took place. Nick Madrigal, he's in his second season. That was a bad throw. I know some people want to blame Tim Anderson. No, that was a bad throw by Nick. Yes. That shouldn't have happened. That should have been a double play, and the Angels would not have scored. But, of course, Mike Trout does it again to the White Sox, tied the game up to 3. Of course, Albert Pujols does his thing to give the Angels the lead and eventually the win. Lakeena, I'm speaking as a fan, but I'm gonna let the left side, which is my intelligence side of my brain, do the talking. As a fan, am I upset? Yes. Is the season over? No. Can you give games away like this? No. But this team can and better learn quickly. This is why you have Tony La Russa. You cannot let stuff like this get to you mentally, especially with some of these players that are young, like Nick Madrigal. And that's why he has key veterans in that clubhouse. That's why you have a veteran manager, Tony La Russa. You can't let stuff like this linger. You just have to turn the page, learn your lesson, and move on.
It'll be very interesting to see how they bounce back from this. But, the good news is, like you said, it's 162 games. You're getting the full season. Mm-hmm. These games, you can just, throw out the tape and just, and burn it and, just forget about it. I mean, that Grandal error was just uncalled for. It was terrible. And look, it's his fault. I'm sure I see a lot of people are blaming Tim Anderson, but no.
The wild pitch. You talking about the wild pitch by,
yeah, well,
the pass ball. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the pass ball, and I guess also the error too. So unfortunately, you're gonna lose. Even some of the best teams are gonna be losing games like that. So you just forget about it and move on. Just don't let it be a habit. And this is why Tony La Russa is there. He can kind of get the guys to sort of get together and clean some of that stuff up. And the best part about it is that you're only a day in the season, so you can you can do that.
Yes, and the series against the Angels resumes this weekend. Taking a look back at some of the numbers from the opener on Thursday night, Lucas Giolito looked very impressive. Pitched 5 in the third inning, gave up only 2 hits, 2 runs, including 2 earned runs, 2 walks, but 8 strikeouts, including his 500th career strikeout. Lakeena, as I asked our illustrious panel during our White Sox pregame preview show that you catch on YouTube and on a podcast format, War Media and a War Anchor for the podcast form. I asked our panel who was going to be the Sox starter to win 20 games. Most of the consensus said Lucas Giolito. No, he didn't get the win last night. Obviously, it wasn't his fault, but he pitched a well of a game last night. 8 strikeouts through that short amount of time. That was amazing. He was definitely not the reason why the Sox lost.
Yeah, he actually struck out the side, in the opening inning. He's the first White Sox player to do that since they started recording strikeouts back in 1913 in the AL. So that was impressive in of itself. I think he's definitely going to try to go for the AL Cy Young. I mean, look, you don't want to waste these type of games with Giolito. You just can't do it. So hopefully this is not going to be a trend for them, and hopefully they can they can bounce back. I mean, look, the great thing about it is that they have a weekend series, and the Angels are kind of not great, but they're okay. So they got a shot to win the series still.
Yeah. Outside of Aaron Bummer, which wasn't totally his fault, I was impressed by the White Sox bullpen. As we said, Lakeena, coming into the season, Tony La Russa has the best bullpen in the American League, if not in all of baseball. Aaron Bummer, who's supposed to be your setup guy, he did the job last night. It's just those defensive lapses, as we mentioned just a couple of seconds ago, really hurt him. And Matt Foster came in there and cleaned up the mess after those mistakes on Thursday. But outside of those mistakes, Lakeena, there's nothing too much you can complain about the Sox. As a fan, should you be disappointed that that game slipped away from you? Yes, but like we said before, the season's not over. They're not going to go on a long losing streak. Those just the games that you cannot give away. Hopefully you learn from them and learn from them quickly.
It'll be interesting to see how they'll be able to do it, because I kind of feel like, look, these are the type of games that, yes, you can probably say, I doubt that by the end of the season, if the White Sox somehow not win a division, they'll say, well, they should have lost that opening against the Angels that cost them a chance to win the division. I doubt that's going to be the case, but because how some White Sox fans are, Sid, and
yeah,
but I'm hoping that's not the case. I mean, look, they can bounce back, and I mean, look, Eaton had a 2-run home run, and they had 7 hits. So, and Dylan Bundy actually, is a pretty decent pitcher himself. So for the Angels, so that he kind of tamed that lineup too. So I'm not worried about it. I love that when people overanalyze, get the first game of the season, you're like, oh my God, they're going to be great, or this team sucks. Let's not do that, folks.
As I always say, you can take things with a grain of salt on social media. Some people, like yours truly, can be reasonable, even though I do react every once in a while as a fan. And then there are some people, like you mentioned, that just take things too damn far. You could be upset, but let's not get ridiculous, folks.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's bring some perspective into this thing. As you're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sidney Browns. We break down the White Sox and opening day around Major League Baseball. We'll break down the Cubs, lost to the Pirates, coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Lakeena, going back to the White Sox opener on Thursday, taking a look at the box score. Tim Anderson went 1 for 4, scoring a run. Leary Garcia went 0 for 4. He struck out twice. He started in left field. Didn't look bad defensively, but offensively, he could be challenging at times, but you didn't bring him there to swing the bat. He brought him there to play defense. I thought he did a good job on Thursday. Luis Robert lost his chain, scoring the first run of the game. The game off a wild pitch. That chain was hanging low, or it was just dragging like a chain off a tow truck. It's scraping up the dirt. Come on.
Well, and that's why I said on Twitter last night. I said, look, see, folks, this is why you don't run the bases with jewelry on. You never know. You may lose it, or you might hurt yourself with it. So I'm all little, I was a little worried for him for a second. But I mean, the best you could do is just look. He did well. I mean, look, you can kind of tell that, look, even veteran players have first game jitters. You kind of have that feeling. So, I'm not too worried. I mean, it's just going to be very interesting to see how this team bounces back, and I think they will. And look, you leave the Mardigal error and the Grandal pass ball. I mean, look, stuff like that's going to happen. So I'm sure Lewis is going to tell his guys don't dwell on it, and let's just go on to the next game now. One thing that was really weird. I mean, look, I know Eloy is very popular in that clubhouse. But the way, Jose Abreu, I know they're very close, but, they had his jersey and his cleats and his gloves. Mm-hmm. The man's not dead, guys. He is still very much with us. And I'm like, is there something y'all don't, does he have more than a torn pec? Does something happen to him? Like, it was just crazy that, of course, that made the rounds all over social media on Thursday, rest in peace, Eloy. I'm like, wait, what?
I saw that too, like, RIP Eloy, like, what? I don't know nothing to talk about Eloy Jimenez, and I clicked on it, like, really? This is the stuff that I'm talking about. People, I can understand people joking to a certain extent. Now, certain things you cannot joke about. There's a line you should not cross, but I can understand to a certain extent people trying to be funny, but really, you didn't have to do that. Now, I wasn't upset, but I was like, really? There's some things that's just not meant to be said, and that was just stupid. Like I said, you can take things with a grain of salt on social media. Don't take everything seriously.
It was just weird seeing that yesterday. It was just weird seeing that yesterday. But like I said, hopefully, at the earliest he'll be back in August. But I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't come back till September. I know pectoral muscle injuries are usually like the hardest to figure out. You don't want to push it. So we'll see how long he is out. But I just thought that was weird yesterday.
Yeah. A couple more things from Thursday night's opener for the White Sox. So Jose Abreu went 1 for 3, and Yohan Moncada went 2 for 3. It's nice to see Yohan Moncada kicking off 2021 with a bang.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was good to see, and you want that from Moncada, especially with Eloy being out. You're gonna have to see guys like Grandal and Moncada, and guys like that to step up more. So that was great. That was great to see. Hopefully he can keep it up.
Yes, hopefully he could keep it up. Now to the north side, where the Cubs had over 10,000 fans as Wrigley Field was opened up to 25% capacity on Thursday. The home fans saw their team lose to the Pittsburgh Pirates by the score of 5-3. Kyle Hendricks, Lakeena, did not look good. He was pulled early. The Pirates offense jumped on his mistakes and jumped on it early. The Cubs will break down the box score and what happened in the notes of both of the game in just a second. But just from the outside looking in, Lakeena, I did have a chance to check out some of that game via my television for a few minutes. It seems to me, now this is on the outside looking in, it seems to me that the Cubs have carried their mistakes from the last couple years down the stretch into this season. You get runners on base, you can advance them, then you strike out, and you can't move the runners. Ever since 2016, Lakeena, this Cubs team has failed to move runners along. I know the home run can carry you for a while, but eventually the home runs are going to stop. You got to create runs to create opportunities. Unless you saw something that I didn't on Thursday, this team, they didn't show a whole lot of creating opportunities, just getting runners across home plate. I didn't see that too much on Thursday. I'm sorry, I'm sounding like I'm overreacting, but from the few minutes that I watched live, I didn't see any aggressiveness on the base pass for the Cubs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 2 hits against the lonely Pirates. That's not gonna win you a lot of games. And look, Hendricks has openly admitted that. Look, in April, and if you look through his numbers, he is right that he's not. He does not very productive in April. It gives him a couple of starts to kind of get him back into his groove. So Hendricks, I'm not worried about. Of course, the batting. Look, that's been sort of a lingering issue the last couple of years, and 2 hits against the Pirates. That's not going to work. That's not going to win you a lot of games. And I just think that, what's the problem here? I mean, you change pitching. You change hitting coach, I should say. You left 4 on base. And, of course, I think the Pirates are like 10 or 11. So I think they got them on that. Oh, actually 15 that the Pirates left. So that's, but the creating opportunities, that's going to be the thing. And look, I mean, if they end up losing this series with the Pirates, Then that's why I'm a little concerned. But if they end up winning the series, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, look, some guys overachieve, in the opener, and some guys underachieve. That's just what happens. So I'm not too worried right now. I think this team is going to compete for a wild card spot. I don't think they're going to be a division, going to be in the run for a division. But again, we'll see. But I'm not going to overreact. Like the White Sox, I'm not going to overreact to what I see from the Cubs, at least not this moment.
The Cubs were 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. As I mentioned, Jason Hayward was 0 for 1, Baez 0 for 2, Ian Happ 0 for 2. Men left on base 4. Like I said, Lakeena, this offense has to be aggressive at some point because you cannot depend on the home run. It's not going to carry you it's going to carry you for a while, but it's not going to carry you for a whole season. So that game plan will not work in the long term, especially come postseason. But we're not in the postseason. We're just getting started here on this season. So there's something that Cubs fans should be aware of and pay attention to. Now, take a look at Kyle Hendricks' numbers from Thursday. He took the loss. He only pitched 3 innings, gave up 4 hits, 3 runs, including 3 earned runs, walked 3 batters, struck out 4, and gave up a home run. Lakeena, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm worried about Kyle Hendricks. He didn't have his best stuff, but looking at that game on Thursday, it was more about the offense than Kyle Hendricks, to be honest with you. If you're a Cubs fan, you expect Kyle Hendricks to pitch like Greg Maddux, lights out almost every time. It's just not going to happen. He's still a very good pitcher, but you can't expect him to keep the opposing team shutting him out all the time. It's just not going to happen. The man is human, just like everybody else. He's going to have a bad performance every once in a while. It just so happened to happen. It happened on Thursday, but this is where you need your offense once again. I blame more of the offense than Kyle Hendricks from Thursday's loss.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you can't be getting 2 hits against the Pirates, who are expected to win only like 50 or 60 games. You can't do that. So, hopefully, that they're off today, of course, on Friday. Hopefully they can bounce back, and I'm thinking that I'm not gonna like, oh my God, no, they're gonna say, okay, I'm gonna take a couple back and just look at the rest of the league. Look, the Blue Jays beat the Yankees yesterday on Thursday, I should say, in a great 10-8 thriller. I'm not gonna freak out if you're a Yankees fan. They're not gonna freak out over like, oh my God, they lost to. Look, the Blue Jays are actually a pretty good team. They may challenge the Yankees for the division. The Tigers won. Do you think they're going to win the division? So I think people just need to kind of just take a step back and sort of say, okay, let's not freak out after one game.
Yeah, and here's another stat before we move on to the rest of the action from Thursday, Lakeena. Pittsburgh, with runners in scoring position, they were 3 for 20, and they led 15 men on base, but somehow they scratched 5 runs across the plate. And that's a sign of taking advantage of the other team's mistakes, and that's what they did on Thursday. Now, moving on to the rest of the action from Thursday from Major League Baseball, since it was opening day 2021. As you mentioned, the Blue Jays beat the Yankees in 10 innings, 3-2. I did watch a little bit of that via my computer of the Yankees. As I mentioned before, they're still going to be a good team, but Garrett Cole actually kept them in the ballgame after the shaky first couple of innings. He settled in, but the Yankees offense, where's the hitting going to come from? I know Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, hopefully both of them will stay healthy for an entire season. I know DJ LeMahieu is back, but who else is going to carry the Yankees offense if one of all those 3 guys should struggle?
And that's going to be the number one question, right? If the hitting isn't good, the pitching has to pick up the slack. If the pitching is not good, the hitting has to pick up the slack. So it has to. They all have to kind of mesh, in between. And that I actually watched was able to watch that game, and it was it was a very thrilling game. 3-2, pitchers duel, and you hope that if you're a Blue Jays fan, I think you'll definitely take it because I think they've got a lot of young talent there, and they can definitely challenge for the AL East. And for the Yankees, you just say, okay, you get 6 hits, but you left a lot of guys on base. So you left 10 guys on base. So that's going to be the kicker for you. And you don't want to have that kind of, kind of thing happening consistently throughout the season, especially in the long season that this will be this year.
Yeah, you mentioned that Tigers 3-2 win over the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah.
Miguel Cabrera, what a slide!
In
He
the snow.
thought that it was a double because of the snow,
Yes, he
and
didn't see. He
the
didn't see.
umpire called it. It was a home run. I was like, that was awesome. I don't know if you saw the video
I
from
did. I did.
Tiger DetroitTigers.com and on their Twitter feed. It was like a movie style, like cinematical. I was like, that is so cool. And I did post a video on my Twitter at SidKid80. I was watching that game live via my computer. And I was like, that was so the announcers, I forgot who they were. I think Kirk Gibson was the analyst. I forgot who was the play-by-play announcer, but they were talking about, well, they should play. This looks like the old Lions Packers game from outside from back in the day. I was like, looking at the snow, that was so cool. Of course, it lifted later on in the game. But I said, I remember a home opener, I believe it was with the Yankees back in the late 90s. It had like a bunch of snow flurries.
Yeah.
I don't know how that game got played. I don't know what year that was, but I remember an opening day like that. Worse than that, I was like, how can you play baseball in the snow with heavier flurries like that, like in New York back in the late 90s? But shout out to the Detroit Tigers. I know I had my opinions on A.J. Hinch, that cheater, but they got the win on Thursday. But looking at that game in light snow flurries, that was pretty cool to witness.
It was like a little snow globe, and when you see Mickey, he didn't know, like you said, he didn't know he thought it was a double. He didn't know that it was a home run. Like, it's a home run. Okay, cool. So I'll just finish running the bases, and that was really cool to see. And a nice win for Detroit. Another game that kind of stood out to me was the Phillies beating Atlanta. Another 10 inning here, 3-2, and look, I mean, could it be these two teams for the division? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, look, the Mets couldn't play yesterday. We'll get to them in a minute, but I like what I saw from the Phillies. I mean, that should be another team that you probably can watch, and that they both teams had had their struggles. Which, look, a lot of teams are going to have their struggles, especially in these early games. So I'm not going to freak out. A team that scores like Atlanta, like they only scored 2 runs, they left a lot of guys on base. Okay, fine. It's going to happen. It's going to take them a while, and look, that was a really thrilling game. Some of these games were actually pretty good on Thursday. I mean, April 1st, you can kind of take it for what it's worth with the jokes, but some of these games were actually really, really exciting.
Yeah, speaking of another exciting finish, Lorenzo Cain of the former Kansas City Royals scored the winning run for the Milwaukee Brewers as they defeated the Minnesota Twins 6-5. I couldn't finish at the game because I had other things to do, but I did watch some of the game from the beginning. It was very competitive early. As we said before, Lakeena, doing our preview segment for this show last week. Watch out for both of these teams. The Brewers are kind of a mystery team in the NL Central, while the Minnesota Twins, they're going to be a battle with the White Sox in the AL Central all year long.
Yeah, that was a pretty good game. I saw the highlights of that. That was a nice run, game winning hit there by Cain. And look, like I said, it was great to have these kind of games because baseball needs the buzz. So another good one that a lot of people probably didn't see because it was late at night. The Mariners beat the Giants 8-7 in 10 innings. So that was a pretty thrilling, game. I watched a little bit of that, but it was late, so I had to go to Sleepy Town. But it was sort of a walk-off walk. that's how they ended up winning the game. So that's kind of rare that happens. But yeah, that was a pretty exciting game, and another one of these teams will probably make any noise in their respective West divisions, but that was a pretty thrilling game nonetheless.
Also, another team that people are watching out for is the San Diego Padres. They defeated the division rival Arizona Diamondbacks 8-7. I did catch this game via my computer on the replay, and that San Diego offense, it is amazing. Eric Hosmer had a home run among his first 3 hits of the ballgame, drove in 3 runs. We talk about Fernando Tatis Jr. Lakeena. He's probably one of the best young players in baseball. As I mentioned, Eric Hosmer. That San Diego Padres team, they have an underrated lineup, and it's going to scare some people. The Dodgers, even though they're the class of the NL, the class of that division in NL West, they better watch out for San Diego. They're not playing.
I'm looking forward to when those two play each other because it's going to be –
must-see TV.
I hope they're all televised too on ESPN or either Fox, either one of the Fox networks. Baseball needs that buzz. So yes, these are 2 West Coast teams, but these are pretty good West Coast teams, including one of the defending World Series champs. So, I'm looking forward to when they play because I think it's going to be a slugfest. the whole time. It's not going to be like, in previous years where the Dodgers were able to kind of just run away and hide in that West. The Padres are like, hey, look, we're here too. So I'm looking forward to when they play each other.
Yeah, speaking of the LA Dodgers, they dropped their opener to the Colorado Rockies. The defending champion Dodgers dropped their opener at Colorado 8-5. Clayton Kershaw, I don't know why he got the start of opening day. Lakeena, he did not look good down the home stretch in spring training. Like I said, I'm not going to overreact. And Dodgers fans shouldn't overreact either. But like I said, Walker Buehler is the best pitcher on that staff. And then Trevor Bauer is second because of his credentials. But Lakeena, the bullpen has hurt the Dodgers again. They got away with it last year. They were healthy most of that playoff run, despite Kelly Jansen's issues, even though he had COVID last year, so we'll give him a kind of a pass on that. But besides that, the bullpen for the Dodgers was an issue on Thursday. And Colorado, who are starting over, they took advantage of that.
But also, too, their offense kind of let them down. You had 15 hits, but you left 14 guys on base. So, and look, the Dodgers have always been pretty good when it comes to runners on base. So that's a little bit surprising. They have 14 on. Of course, they lost. So I'm not worried about it. I know, yes, Kershaw had his struggles. He gave up 10 hits, but again, the bullpen was able to kind of, keep it down, hold down the fort though, and kind of sort of keep the damage to a minimum. But, to me, it was more their offense that kind of let them down yesterday, the Dodgers, on Thursday, I should say.
And speaking of offense, the Kansas City Royals, another team in the White Sox division, they defeated the Texas Rangers 14-10. That's right. It's not a typo. 14-10. Both teams scored 5 runs in the first inning. Lakeena, I did see this on the highlight package. Is this a football game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, no, actually, since remember they're AL, so it would be the Texans, Chiefs over the Texans in this game. But yeah, I saw the score. I saw the score. I'm like, what in the world? I mean, 30 hits, but remember the Rangers also had 3 errors, so that's why the Royals were able to kind of pull that out in the end. And 14-10. I mean, you wish you had these kind of games, right? I mean, this would probably get people more young folks to watch if you had these type of scores. Yeah. But it was definitely a wild game, and wild. The last couple of innings were pretty wild too. So, you wish you had these kind of games more often. Maybe Rays wouldn't be an issue for the MLB, but that's another story for another episode. But this was a fun game to watch.
Yeah, and I was getting ready to say back to that Rangers Royals game. It's like the steroid era, the late '90s and early 2000s. Like, okay, keep hitting this ball like it's 6-inch softball. I'm just saying.
All right, those old since it's games from back in the day. So this is a very interesting game, very entertaining game too. If you didn't get a chance to watch the replays, you'll see why it was so entertaining. Now there was one game that did not get played because of COVID. 3 Nationals players tested positive, and also contact tracing. So that whole series with the Mets is postponed. So both teams, at least the Mets, won't be able to play till Monday. But you hope that this is going to be a big issue. So COVID's still around. Yes, people are getting vaccinated, and more vaccines, thankfully, are becoming more and more available, and more with the rollout. But again, it's still around, folks. Wash your hands, keep your mask on, keep your distance. So just a little PSA for this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We talked about this before we started recording. We'll get to what the commissioner of both the NFL and Major League Baseball said are regarding protocols and potential crowd capacities. We'll get into that later on in the show. But like you mentioned, Lakeena, the baseball players, it's going to be interesting to see how these teams are handling, because I don't want to bring politics too much into this, but that's what controls everything. I don't know if you called President Joe Biden President of the United States, for those listening outside the United States. U.S. President Joe Biden, he was on SportsCenter with Sage Steele the other day, and Sage asked him a question about what advice would you give people that are on the fence about getting that vaccine. Of course, he said they should get the vaccine. I said, okay, and you brought up this question before we started recording. You asked how would these teams not ask, but how would they approach the players of getting the vaccine?
Yeah, the vaccine rollout.
And I said, I think most of them will get it, but you cannot force somebody to get it if they don't want to get it.
Well,
You can try to shame them and say, oh, you do it for whoever, do it for society. If you want to see things back to normal, you better get that vaccine. I was like, you cannot use scare tactics. It may work on some folks, but it's not going to work on me, or it's not going to work on players. I get it that they make a whole lot of money, and I get it. They're there for our entertainment. I get it, but you cannot force someone to do what they don't want to do.
Look, we brought this up before we recorded, Sid. They try. I don't know if it was the NFL. I know it wasn't the NBA, but I don't know whether it was the NFL or in the NHL. One of the leagues, years ago, for those of you can Google it, but one league tried to get their players to make the flu shot mandatory, getting the flu shot every year. Mm-hmm. That didn't go over well. I think the union sued, and they were able to win it, and they haven't brought that up since. And they're not going to do it here either, because again, freedoms, and also not just the anti-vaxxers. Of course, they're out there, but you got folks. Look, when it comes to the Black community and the history of being used as guinea pigs and and those type of things, understandably, that's why folks like us that are very hesitant when it comes to taking the vaccine.
Yeah,
and of course, there are other reasons too, religious reasons and stuff like that. So you can't make the players, or anybody for that matter, get the vaccine if they don't want to. So because I'm really getting irked by folks that, well, you should do it for this, like you said, so you should do it for society, do it for your parents, or your siblings or whatever, or who are. But look, I mean, hopefully we get to a point where more and more people get vaccinated, we get herd immunity, so it won't be an issue. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams and these leagues sort of play around with the rollouts. Because I heard Stephen A. Smith say, not to go off to the NBA, but a few weeks ago, Stephen A. Smith said, well, LeBron should tell everybody what he's doing with the vaccine. No, he shouldn't. He doesn't know. Really,
Thank you.
So it's just stupid. And look, I'm gonna quote Matt Nagy. How I know how y'all feel about him right now as a Bears fan, Bears coach, of course. Do you, be you, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of LeBron James, I know he said publicly it's a private matter to him, and he's right. At the end of the day, the shot goes into his body, not your body, not anybody else's body. That shot will go into his body if he chooses to do so. He's doing it for himself, and I'm assuming for his family as well. So, that shot is not going to go into your body for him. It's going to go into his body. So, folks that's criticizing LeBron James, worry about yourselves, please.
And there have been some side effects. There have been people who've had like rashes in their arms, and among other things. Yeah, I think I don't want to say it was because of the vaccine, but I guess someone took the vaccine. A young lady took a vaccine and she died. So nobody really knows if there was a vaccine, but her family thinks it was. So again, people are going to have their concerns about it. So look, be you, do whatever you want to do. You don't owe anybody anything. Look, just wash your hands and just be considerate and use common sense.
Yes. And mic drop. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. That is she. I'm Sidney Brown, which is me. Lakeena, since we have a few minutes left, let's go to basketball. But on the college side, it is now Final Four weekend from Indianapolis. The two games will be played in the Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. The first game will be up at 4:14 p.m. Central Standard Time. The whole Final Four will be on CBS this year. You have number 2, the Houston Cougars, taking on the number 1 seeded Baylor Bears. And then at 7:34 p.m. Central Standard Time, also on CBS, you'll have number 11, UCLA Bruins, the Cinderellas of this year's tournament. They'll take on the number 1 seed Gonzaga. Before we break down some of these key matchups, Lakeena, I did say on our previous show with Gabe Salgado at Athlon Sports that we did live, also along with our content director Kyle Maines of War Media. I did say we was going to have some minor hiccups in the tournament. It turns out we only had one game forfeited, and that was a VCU Oregon game. Outside of that, what grade would you give the NCAA? I would give them an A-, because we're here at the Final Four. Hopefully nothing else happens between now and Monday in the championship game. As we said before, we're just happy to get the tournament back. It's been an interesting tournament, and I think it's going to end on a high note. I'm cautiously optimistic, but it's going to end on a high note. You only missed one game. The NCAA, we all have a lot of choice words to say about them on the negative side, but I'll actually be fair and give them an A- on this side.
Yeah, I'm giving it A- too. I mean, look, we were all sort of wondered, okay, how are they going to be able to do this? Because you can't have these teams travel all across the country. You just can't do that. We know it was going to be feasible this year. So, especially with them not having a tournament last year, come hell or high water, we talked about it, said that they were going to make it happen. They were going to get a tournament. We were going to get a tournament in some form or fashion. And look, so far, it's been really good. Like you said, the only team that had issues was VCU. And unfortunately, they had to forfeit, but nothing really big after that. And they're kind of in a bubble too. So yes, they're really fans here, but they're kind of putting the players and the coaches sort of in this little shield. So don't have to worry about any like outside issues, because I think all four. I don't know if UCLA had COVID, but I know the other three have had COVID issues early in the season. So they were able to kind of combat that, but hopefully we won't have any issues with that. And as far as the games are concerned, I mean, I think these two games will be very interesting. Well, we'll start with Houston and Baylor. That's sort of a matchup from the old Southwest Conference. For those of you who remember that,
yes,
the conference, they had
taking it way back.
Yeah, they had their issues. Houston's making their first appearance in the Final Four since the Phi Slamma Jamma days back in the early '80s. '84 was actually their last trip to the Final Four. Baylor's making their first appearance since like 1950 when they were in the Southwest Conference. So it's been a long time for both these teams. I'm looking forward to the match between Quentin Grimes, who is the American Player of the Year, and Jared Butler. That should be a lot of fun. Both are leading scorers of particular teams. And look, Houston can defend the three very well, and Baylor likes to shoot the three. So I'm looking forward to that matchup in that sense. And look, I think Houston's got to they're quick, but Baylor's quick, and Baylor's sort of a good all-around, three-point shooter. But like I said, Houston can defend a three. So this should be a very interesting game. It's sort of like this is kind of like a redeem tour for Kelvin Sampson, of course, of all the stuff that happened over in Indiana. He's kind of was able to took about a year off, to kind of gather himself and sort of redeem himself, and now he's made Houston into a national power again. Baylor, we know what happened with the program years ago. Scott Drew came in, basically from scratch, and hopefully this culminates in something really good. I'm looking forward to this game. What about you?
Yeah, it's going to be an all Texas size matchup. I think one thing is going to come down to is rebounding, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Justin Gorman leads Houston rebounding with 8.7 rebounds per game, 3.9 rebounds per average on the offensive end. So it's going to come down to rebounding, especially on the offensive glass. In any game in basketball, if you give a whole lot of offensive rebounds, you're going to lose. So I'm looking forward to watching both these teams. It's going to come down to rebounding, and I think Houston has a slight edge over Baylor. As you mentioned, Houston defends the three-point line very well. If Baylor can shoot the ball above 40%, they have a chance. But Houston's very underrated defensively, and it's going to come down to rebound. I'm looking forward to see who rebounds the ball the most and the best. And whoever has the edge is going to win that ball game. Offensive rebounding will be the key in this one. And I'm taking Houston in this matchup.
Both these teams are very deep. So I think that's going to be the depth. Fatigue won't be an issue between them. They both can go 10, 11 deep, so I'm not worried about that. Like you said, Sid, if Baylor can hit their threes, they're tough to beat. If Houston does a good job defending the three, which they're very good at, they'll win it. So I'm thinking Baylor. It's going to be very close. It's going to come down to a wire, but I think a slight edge goes to Baylor, I think.
As I said before this tournament, Lakeena, I think Houston was in the same bracket as Illinois.
Yep.
And I said, watch out for Houston. They could make some noise, of course. We saw what Loyola did to define the line a couple of weeks ago. We saw what Oregon State did to Loyola, and then, of course, so on in that bracket. But Houston was the best team, obviously, coming out that Midwest bracket. They belong here for a reason, and they're going to give Baylor a hell of a fight. Like I said, it's going to come down to offensive rebounding, and I think Houston has the edge. I know some people may call it an upset. I get it because not too many people watch Houston Cougars basketball across the country. So they're going to surprise some people later today. You listening to this on the Saturday via podcast style. So they're going to surprise some people. I have Houston winning this one. They're a very good team, folks. I'll be shocked if they get blown out. I'll be shocked.
No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I doubt.
That's what I'm saying. I'll be shocked if Houston gets blown out, but it's going to be a very good game.
Yeah, I think it's going to go down to the wire. And like I said, I don't think it's going to be a blowout on either side. I think this will definitely be a grinded out game. And, I have Baylor winning, but like I said, I would be surprised if Houston wins. I know, look, this isn't the early '80s jamma teams that people were used to back in the day, but this is a pretty good, solid Houston team, so should be very interesting. The second game is you got the number 11 seed UCLA Bruins taking on the number 1 seed, and only undefeated team left, Gonzaga. For this one, Sid, look, I know people are gonna like freak out about. Well, I love that the tweets from folks they already kind of pissed this as a win for Gonzaga. Like, okay, Gonzaga, Sharpie, guys. Apparently, you guys haven't seen UCLA. Johnny Juzang, who I love. He's a great facilitator. He can shoot the three. He can go inside.
Jacquez as well. He's been a star in this tournament as well for the Bruins. I like him.
Oh yeah, he's really good. He can definitely defend the paint, and he's really good at that. And also too Tyler Campbell, who I know people like or they notice his hair, but he's actually a pretty good player too.
Yeah,
he can pass the ball well. And yes, because you got Jalen Suggs, who can be a facilitator in the offense. Drew Timme.
That young man is quick.
Yes, he is. Drew Timme, who can score, who can also rebound too. Look, I mean, I know people are already saying this is going to be a blowout, but look, I'm kind of getting those. It would be ironic though, considering UCLA. This is the UCLA their first trip to the Final Four since they go all the way back to the Kevin Love, Russell Westbrook, Jacob Mute, and remember those teams. So those
that was, I think the last trip was 2008. I saw.
2008, yeah, they were on that team. So the lot of Darren Collison too. So yeah, so definitely going a way back machine with that. So I think that Mick Crow is going to use this as motivation. They've been using it all tournament long. There were some people that said that UCLA should not have been in the tournament. And it would be ironic, too, that a historic program like UCLA, if they beat Gonzaga, would be considered an upset. I'm doing air quotes here because you're not going to be watching this, who are going to be listening to this, not watching this. But look, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to say that they're going to win, but look, if they do beat Gonzaga, I would be shocked. I know some people will be, but I won't be. What about you?
I will be to an extent that Gonzaga has been the number 1 team all year, and consider the conference that they played in. They met the challenge. UCLA, I can understand they're playing the underdog card because let's be honest here, the Pac-12, as we said on this program in the last few weeks since this tournament began, the Pac-12 has gotten no love nationally. And rightfully so at times, but UCLA, they've earned it. They beat Michigan State. They beat Alabama. And they beat Michigan the other night to get to the Final Four, even though it was an ugly game to watch until the last couple of seconds. But UCLA, they deserve to be here, but they're going to run up against a better team. I know we said that against Michigan, and look what happened. So here's the thing. I will go opposite on you. I'll be shocked if they beat Gonzaga later on tonight. But UCLA is going to have to play a perfect game. They're just going to have to. And my key to this game is turnovers. Whoever takes care of the basketball the best, who has the least turnovers, they're going to win this game. That's all it's going to come down to.
I agree. I think that's going to be the thing. And I think, like you said, Sid, look, I mean, it's going to be an uphill battle. It's a tall task. But look, in a situation where it's, one game and, if you lose it, you're done, that's all you need. That's all you need. We saw it in '91 when Duke beat UNLV, in the national.
That was one of the best college basketball games I've ever saw.
Yep. Oh yeah.
For those of you that didn't see, especially for our younger viewers and listeners, go check it out in its entirety on YouTube.
Yep. And I think it was 2015. I think was it that I think the Karl Anthony Towns Kentucky team that they went all the way undefeated, and they lost to Wisconsin with Frank Kaminsky.
I called that on the D and Davis show. We were doing our radio show down at the school. I called that. Yes. And shout out to Maya Kai, now official friend of this show. I know her radio show at the time. She called it as well, the Wisconsin over Kentucky. Yours truly and Miss Maya Kai, we both were the only 2 people in Chicago that called that upset.
I was actually thinking that maybe that it would be Duke that would beat them, that Kentucky would get to the final game against Duke, and Duke would be the one beating them because they've done it before. But look, I wasn't surprised with Wisconsin. Look, I saw that Wisconsin team, with Frank Kaminsky and those the Chris Orlando Tucker, the Chris Tucker, the Orlando Taylor, I think the Chris Tucker lookalike. If you Google his name, you know who I'm talking about. But I mean, look, this is sort of like the same vibe I'm getting here because look, there's a reason why we haven't seen an undefeated team since 1976. There's a reason for that. it's hard to do. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I think we're going to get a Gonzaga-Baylor matchup for the championship game on Monday, because we didn't get it earlier this season. We were supposed to get it, but Gonzaga had COVID issues, so we didn't get it. So it would be interesting if we do get that matchup, but we'll see. I mean, UCLA may have something to say about that, and Houston too.
Yeah, my matchup for Monday will be Houston versus Gonzaga, but we'll see what happens. In both those games should be a great contest coming from Indianapolis during the Final Four. Lakeena, real quick, we have just about a minute or so left. Roy Williams, a Hall of Fame basketball coach, college basketball. He has 903 career wins between Kansas and North Carolina. He announced on Thursday that he's going to retire. He is at the age of 70. Of course, North Carolina lost to Wisconsin this year in the NCAA tournament, but Coach Williams has 3 national championships, one with North Carolina in 2005. Boo, because of the Illini. But he has a couple with he has 2 with North Carolina and 1 with Kansas. The Kansas one I remember back in was it?
No, it was all 3. No, all 3. He won all 3 with North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay, I thought he won one with Kansas, but
no, he got. I think he got close a couple of times.
I remember the one in 09, 05, and what was the other one?
Just a few years
I don't
ago,
have my Google machine in front of me.
2017, just a few years ago.
Okay.
Remember that year?
I'm not saying you're wrong in 2017, but I remember the 05 and 09.
Yeah, if you remember that previous year in the last one, they lost to Villanova with that buzzer beater by Chris Jenkins. And
I remember that, yes.
Yeah, and the year after that, they actually beat Gonzaga to win it. So
That's right. Yeah, now I remember. Yeah. Yeah, because that was the last time Gonzaga was in the Final Four. They played a great first half, and they got their butts blown out in the second half. That's why I have you, Lakeena.
I'm happy to help. And look, this as far as Coach Williams, I was shocked because I thought it was the April Fool's joke. They're like, wait a minute, is this an April Fool's joke? And are you pulling a fast one on us, bro? He has a pretty good sense of humor, but but I think he himself said he doesn't really like the direction of college hoops. That's why he's retiring. Like he said, 3 national championships. I heard Danny Green, who now plays for the Sixers, he played on that 09 team that won the championship. And I remember he said that he didn't get any inklings. He talks to him, frequently, so he didn't get any inklings that he was going to retire. So, that's kind of a surprise. A lot of people. He had 20 win seasons. That's the first most in D1 history. 30 win seasons. That's the second in D1 history. Of course, he's inducted in the Hall of Fame in 07. Like you said, 400 wins at both Kansas and North Carolina. Just an amazing career. And look, it's gonna be interesting to see what direction that North Carolina goes, because there are gonna be a lot of guys that are gonna be vying for that job. Hubert Davis is one that another.
I was going to bring his name up.
Also, Wes Miller, who also played for North Carolina, I believe he's at North Carolina Greensboro, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think they went to the tournament. They've been to the tournament a couple of times since he's been there. So I think those are the 2 names that are being sought after. So I'm interested to see what direction they decide to go with.
Yeah, I know Larry Brown, who was quoted yesterday saying that it should be in the quote unquote Carolina family. And I said, he's correct if they want to go their route, but it's not going to be you, my man, only because of age. If this was 5-10 years ago, probably, but not now. But like you said, it's going to be interesting to see who they bring in, if they should bring in someone from the outside. So that's a prime job, and someone with a high profile name will take that job. It's just a matter of who's it going to be.
Well, like I said, it's going to be a very sought after job, and like you said, Sid, I mean, if it's not either Davis or Wes Miller, there's going to be some people say Kenny Smith, which let's bring. I mean, look, I think Kenny Smith would I don't know. That's will be if Kenny Smith decides to play the coach of North Carolina, since he played there too back in the late 80s and early 90s. But
he came in and when Jordan was going out. I know they played with each other for 1 year, I believe,
in '84.
And then Jordan left early to go to NBA.
Yeah. But again, I think Hubert Davis and Wes Miller, I think those 2 are the favorites to get that job. And I don't know if they're going to arm wrestle for it or what, but I'm sure they're going to try to keep the Carolina family, I think.
Yeah, I see why not.
Yeah. So Sid, kudos on the great career, Roy Williams. I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure there are going to be some people that are going to want him to do television, or something if he decides to do that. So it'll be interesting where his career goes. Should be very interesting.
Yes, it will be. So congratulations to him on a great career, going to the NCAA tournament, 30 out of his 33 years of head coaching. And Michael Jordan said, I don't know if you caught this quote, that he was one, Roy Williams, he was an assistant under the late Dean Smith at the time when
Yep.
Jordan came into North Carolina. He was one of the first few to discover Michael Jordan coming out of high school
Yep.
and recruiting him to go to North Carolina. So
He did.
greatness has followed him throughout his whole career. So we commend you, Mr. Williams, on a great career. We're going to take this 20-second timeout on the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Lakeena McGee is she. I'm Sidney Brown, which is me. When we return, we're going to talk a little crowd control with involving MLB and the NFL, and we're going to get to Bulls. It's not looking good. And we'll get into the best of the worst of this past week in the NBA. We'll preview some of the big games coming up this weekend around the National Basketball Association. And Lakeena McGee has promised you from the last episode, it aired a couple weeks ago on TV One Unsung. She's going to give her review on the premiere episode featuring Morris Day. All that and more on the flip side. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Welcome back to the weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I'm Sidney Brown. That's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
And you can catch our videos right here on YouTube at War Media, once again at WARR Media, every Monday and Friday. And then you can catch our podcast edition the very next day, Tuesdays and Saturdays, right here on YouTube every Monday and Friday at War Media. And then our podcast versions every Tuesday and Saturday. One more time, or as the kids would say, one more again. You can watch our show on YouTube at War Media, once again at WARR Media. Once again, at WARR Media, you can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. And our podcast, you could go to War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. It kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and our iHeartRadio app. Type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. Thank you very much for your support in advance.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes. And we are unapologetically fun. Lakeena, hopefully we can have some fun with this next segment as we kick it off talking about the Chicago Bulls in the NBA. The Bulls are currently on a 5-game losing streak. They just finished up their West Coast road trip. They lost to the Golden State Warriors on Monday thanks to a big third quarter by Steph Curry. He finished up with 33 points for the contest. And on Wednesday, the Bulls had a 5-point loss to the Phoenix Suns, 121-116, thanks to Devin Booker's 45-point effort. Zach LaVine did not play for the Chicago Bulls, as we talked about in our last episode, Lakeena. He's resting that sore ankle. There was some balanced scoring in the starting lineup for the Chicago Bulls, Lakeena. They just didn't have enough.
Yeah, and I think that, look, I don't think if Steph would have played, I think the Bulls probably could have won that game. That's just my opinion. But, I mean, look, it's going to take some games to kind of get everybody to mesh together. I like what I'm seeing for guys individually. I'm looking, Vooch is doing his thing. Things is doing his thing.
It's not his fault that the Bulls are losing.
Yeah,
Vooch is doing his thing.
Yeah, he's doing what we've seen him do in Orlando all these years. So I'm not worried about him. Daniel Theis, he looks like a Bull, right? He kind of reminds me of, I don't want to say scowl, but only without that red hair. But he's got a lot of the tattoos and whatnot. Very, very gritty. He he'll definitely be a cult figure here in Chicago. I mean, look, like you said, the Bulls have a lot of injuries right now, so I'm not. Like, look, that Phoenix team, yes, they can be a little bit streaky, but, also, too, with the Warriors. But, I'm not – look, it's going to take a while for these teams to kind of, mesh together. And, look, I mean, it's unfortunate that, these injuries, you got, Zach's hurt and Kobe has a strained neck, for being, knocked around so much. But I'm not too worried about it. Look, they're going through a tough stretch of their schedule. So, It would be asking a lot. I mean, I'm sure they'll probably lose to Utah. They have Brooklyn, coming up tomorrow on Sunday. So that's going to be a big, plateau for them. But it gets a little bit easier as the week goes on. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm kind of like, okay, look, if they win one of these games, okay, that'll be an accomplishment. But if everyone's healthy, I want to see how everyone looks when they're healthy. But it is what it is.
If the playoffs start today, the Bulls will be the number 10th seed playing in that play-in tournament. As I said during our NBA Bulls preview show back in December, I said the Bulls had an outside shot of getting into the play-in tournament. They still have an outside shot, Lakeena, but they got to turn things around quickly, and they get some key guys healthy. Taking a look at that box score from Wednesday's loss at Phoenix. Without Zach, without Kobe White. Thaddeus Young had 19 points. Larry Marketed, he only had 16. I was disappointed in that. He only had 5 of 13 shooting, including 2 of 8 from three-point land. But Patrick Williams, the rookie out of Florida State, stepped up. He has 16 points. Vucevic was the only 20-point scorer for Chicago with 24. And, off the bench, Denzel Valentine. In 29 minutes of action. Yes, I know. It's a shock to some people, but in 29 minutes of action, he was 3 of 9 from three-point range as he chipped in with 19 points. And Daniel Tice, as you mentioned, looking as the Bulls picked up in that trade from Boston, he had 6 points and 5 rebounds. I like Tice, of course. I remember him from his Boston days. He was on the San Antonio teams a few years back when no one knew about him, but watching him, of course, with the Celtics the last few years, he is a guy, as you mentioned, Bulls fans are going to love. He's the only guy that brings it every night defensively in the paint. But the Bulls' problem been the last few years, even this season, the interior defense, it's just been terrible. I'm not blaming Vucevic. It was a problem before he got here. It's still a problem now. But as you mentioned, the Bulls are trying to figure some things out. They just got to do it in a hurry. Can they do it enough to make the playoffs? It remains to be seen.
Well, and also, to remember, they're playing in the East. That Eastern Conference, there's such a there's a big gap between the top three, the Nets, the Sixers, and the Bucks to everybody else. I mean, after the Bucks, who are third right now, Charlotte, who are 6 games back of them. That's how big of a drop that is. So the Bulls are going to get into the playoffs because the East is so terrible. And hopefully, Kobe and Zach, they can all come back and kind of contribute. And all these new pieces will be able to mesh. And, look, I'm not going to say that they're going to be a top 5, 6 seed, but I'm sure they're definitely going to be right there for the play-in.
Yeah, the Bulls have the potential to climb up a little bit if they could turn things around quickly, but I think that the position that they're in, they'll kind of be right there, perfect for the play-in. And I know some people early in the season thought they should tank, obviously, before the trade deadline. That's not an option now because that first-round pick to Orlando is, I believe, top 4 protected.
Yep.
So it's not going to do you any good to do that anyway. So you're not going to have a first-round pick. So you have this management with AK and Mark Eversley, the GM. They're saying we're all in for this season as far as making another step to improving his team. What they do over the summer, it remains to be seen. But focusing on the here and now, we're all in to make the playoffs. Why not?
Sure. Why not? I mean, look, I want to see this team be able to play, up there. If they'll probably play at, Boston or maybe even Atlanta. If the playoffs started today for that play-in. So I'm interested to see what they do here. Because like I said before, that the East is pretty much, I don't want to say a dumpster fire, but it's sort of like a buffet. Because, after the Bucks and the Sixers and the Nets, I mean, it's pretty much everybody else. So, it is what it is. But, be interested to see how it gets a little easier for the Bulls later next week. We'll talk about that. But, this is sort of a murderous role schedule for the Bulls right now. It's a lot to ask, especially when you have some of your top guys injured right now.
Yeah, there's a lot to ask, but every team's deals with injuries. Somehow you got to muster up, and the guys who are available to play, they must step in and step up and fill in their roles and compete for 48 minutes. That's what this Bulls team needs right now. They need players that are willing to come in and step up, the next man up. So no one's going to feel sorry for you. So they just have to go out there and give it a full effort for 48 minutes. Hopefully you come out with the man, as you mentioned, Lakeena, I know you're going to break down the schedule coming up for this coming week, but it does get a little bit easier after early Sunday game at home against Brooklyn, which they may have a shot at, by the way, because Kevin Durant is not going to play I forgot who's the and Kevin Durant has his own issues. We won't get into it here,
No.
but James Harden, he's been missing action time because of his hamstring. I know it's not as serious as KD's, but Brooklyn's going through it on the injury front right now.
Yeah, so they might have a shot. Again, will they win? We'll not say they will, but they have a shot. I mean, look, Kyrie's been kind of in and out too with some some of his I think he has an ankle injury too. I think Kyrie does. That he's pulling through. So look, I mean, they may have a shot. Look, that 1 o'clock game. I know it's a weird home game. Sunday, Easter Sunday, but hey, what can you do? But yeah, it should be very interesting though with that particular. That particular game. Now we'll get to all the games a little bit. So what has impressed you so far this week?
As we normally do, let's go backwards. Of course, this past Thursday's action, the Atlanta Hawks defeated the San Antonio Spurs in double overtime in San Antonio, 134-129. Clint Capella. I know Houston is going through a rebuild right now, but Capella is benefiting from being on the new team, playing with Trae Young. He scored a team high 28 points, grabbed 17 rebounds. DeMar DeRozan had a great performance with 36 points in a losing effort. But I want to talk about the Denver Nuggets, perhaps the hottest team in the league right now. They defeated the Clippers on TNT this past Thursday, 101-94. Jamal Murray led Denver with 23 points. Kawhi Leonard scored 24 for the Clippers. Looking at Nikola Jokic, Lakeena, can you say he's the top guy for MVP only because LeBron James is missing time due to injury? So is Joel Embiid.
I mean, look, I think that they need to improve their seeding. I think they're the 5th seed right now, and
most definitely,
if they're going to be a top 4 seed, I think that he may have a shot. But I think the problem is that they're number 5, and they're not going to give it to a guy whose team finishes at number 5, even if it is the Western Conference. So look, Jokic has is taking advantage of the fact that LeBron's out and Embiid's out. Harden has been in and out. Of course, there are going to be those that are not going to vote for Harden because of what he did at Houston, to get out of there. So because how some people are. So he might win it, but again, if LeBron comes back, he picks up where he left off, or if Embiid comes back and picks up where he left off. I mean, that's going to be a tough go around, but you got to think that Jokic, at the very least, is kind of like the leader in the clubhouse right now because he's actually healthy.
Going back the day before, which will be Wednesday, the Portland Trail Blazers defeated the Detroit Pistons 124-101. Dame Dollar, as the kids will call him, Damian Lillard scored 33 points, dished out 10 assists. I think Damian Lillard is sitting at the number 2 spot for MVP right now. Portland is slowly climbing up those standings in the West. They're right behind Denver.
You've been hot on Portland these last couple of weeks, especially now that they got everybody back. Hopefully they can stay healthy, and I think that's been the issue for Portland these last 2 years because there's always get like one or two guys get hurt, and kind of leaves up to one guy, whether it's Lillard or last maybe like a couple of years it's been Carmelo. So hopefully they can kind of make some noise in the Western Conference. It's sort of there for the taking. Now for me, I think the most impressive when I would think probably Dallas beating Boston. Luka had 36. And
I'll let you finish.
Yeah, I mean, Boston is going back to their bad habits. I mean, they made some, questionable defense, offensive, possessions. Excuse me, because they were right there. The victory was still there for them, and unfortunately, they weren't able to capitalize. So, Tatum had 25, but I don't know what's going on in Boston. They're going back to their own those bad habits that have plagued them these last couple of years.
Maybe a coaching change will be some good, but we'll see come after the playoffs are over with. The Brooklyn Nets, as we mentioned, Lakeena, they're banged up with injuries right now. They defeated Charlotte on Thursday, and they defeated the Houston Rockets on Wednesday, so they won their last 2 games at home. Utah keeps on rolling. They defeated the Grizzlies on Wednesday. And don't look now, Lakeena. Those Milwaukee Bucks, I did watch that game on Wednesday. They embarrassed the Lakers 112-97. Did you check out that block from Giannis Antetokounmpo on Alex Caruso? My goodness, that was a statement block.
Well, for me, like I think that the fact that LeBron's hurt and AD's still hurt, and I think Drummond had to leave because of a toe injury. He's going to be out a couple of games. So I think for some of us, I think that this sort of like kind of rings hollow. Look, that was a nice performance, but let's remember this Lakers team is still not at full strength. So again, of course, if you're a Bucks fan, you take the win. But I think right now the fact that Lakers are out, and not healthy, I think that kind of like this victory. Okay, you'll take it, but again, remember they weren't healthy.
And also, too, hopefully Andre Drummond will get back into the lineup quickly. He's not going to be out hopefully that long. Andre Drummond has not played a basketball game in over a month, so that's why I'm not surprised with what happened to him. So you can practice and get in shape all you want to, which is what you're supposed to do, but not substitutes for actual playing in a game.
Yeah, that's sort of been his problem, and I think that's probably why his toe got, as banged up as it did, because, like you said, he hasn't been playing in a month because he had to sit out because they were trying to trade him. So, I think the word is that it's not serious. He's only going to miss a game or two, so hopefully he'll be back, before the weekend's over with. So, because I think the Lakers, you saw him earlier. Look, they looked really good with him on the floor. So hopefully he'll be back, because they need to really hold down that fort until LeBron and AD will be able to come back.
Yep. Also, too, before we move on to preview some of the key matchups for this weekend, Russell Westbrook became the first player this past Tuesday in NBA history to score 20-plus points, grab 15 rebounds, and dish out 10 more assists. He did another triple-double as the Wizards, in a losing effort, they lost to the Charlotte Hornets 114-104. Russell Westbrook with another triple-double, 22 points, 15 rebounds, and 14 assists. Lakeena, I don't know if you want to talk about this quote-unquote foolishness here, but I don't know if you caught the comments of what Stephen A. Smith said on First Take earlier this week. What is your thoughts on that?
Stephen A., as usual, putting his foot in his mouth. I mean, it's unfortunate that again, I think Westbrook hasn't had a chance to win a title. I mean, I'm sure he loves these, the stats, the individual stats. I mean, this past month, March, was a night time in, Russell Westbrook's career that he averaged a triple-double in a month. That is the most in the NBA history. So I'm sure he will love that stats, but I'm sure he will love to trade those for at least a title or a title, run or a title, contender. I mean, I still feel that OKC team, if he and Harden and KD had stuck together, I think they would have won a championship. I stand by that. I know some people say no, they wouldn't. Yes, they would have. I think if things had kind of went their way. Again, I think they broke that. I think they broke that particular victory up too early. But again, that's another episode. But look, I'm sure he would love to be able to kind of play for a contender. Look, it's not his fault that the Wizards, they're kind of, they've been not been very good. Well, here's the word they about is that they're still right there. They can get into the play-in game. That's how bad the East is. That proved my point.
Unbelievable.
That's absurd, right? So I mean, Stephen A. Look. Gosh. I mean, I have no issues with Stephen A. But you go, because I'm done. I've been done with him for years. So what's your take?
Ass a 8, ass a 9, ass a 10.
There you go. Now that's your mic drop for today. Nicely done.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. That's me. As we now talk about the National Basketball Association. Lakeena, quickly, let's move on to some of the key games for this weekend, starting with Saturday's action at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. The Dallas Mavericks will take on the Washington Wizards, featuring Russell Westbrook. He's averaging a triple-double for the season. Luka Doncic is leading the way. He's averaging 28.5 points per game this season. Dallas, as we mentioned, Lakeena, they needed to turn it around. They've done so these last few weeks.
Yeah, they've looked really good these last few weeks. And, what difference the last few months have made, right, Sid? I mean, there were people that wanted, Rick Carlisle's head in a platter. Now look out. Now they're the 7th seed in the West right now. So, they've been playing very well. And, look, Luka, I think, unfortunately, I think because of the team's slow start, he's not in the discussion for MVP. But, he's sort of, making a late push for it. So this should be an interesting game between, him and Westbrook. That should be fun.
Also on Saturday night, not too many great games, but you can see individual players at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. The OKC Thunder will travel to Portland to take on Dame Dollar C.J. McCollum, Carmelo Anthony, and the Portland Trail Blazers. The Blazers are currently 29-18 right now. And then at the same time at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, the Milwaukee Bucks continue their West Coast road trip. They'll take on the young and hungry Sacramento Kings.
That should be a lot of fun. Sorry about that, folks. I'm getting my charging my laptop here. But yeah, that should be a lot of fun. I mean, I'm looking forward to that one. I'm going to try to watch that game in between the Final Four games via my laptop. So, I mean, look, we know how scrappy Sacramento is. You know, we know how great Milwaukee is. I mean, look, I'm not going to say they're going to pull off an upset. The Kings will, but that should be, don't sleep on them. So I'm hoping that they don't look far ahead the Bucks.
All right. Going to Sunday's action.
Easter Sunday, don't forget.
Yes, yeah, Easter Sunday. Happy Easter to everyone who celebrates Easter.
Yes.
Easter Sunday, 2:30 p.m. on ABC. That's Chicago time, of course. The Los Angeles Lakers, hopefully Andre Drummond will return for the Lakers as they'll take on the LA Clippers. The Clippers, Lakeena, they've been struggling here recently. I know they lost on Thursday at home to the Denver Nuggets. I know Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I think combined missed 22 games this year. But hopefully both those guys will be healthy for Sunday as those are one of the teams that are ahead of the Lakers in the standings right now. So hopefully they get to take care of business there. And also at 5 p.m. on Sunday, the Charlotte Hornets will travel to Boston to take on the Celtics. Can the Celtics climb back to 500?
Very scrappy Charlotte team. We know how scrappy they are. And Boston,
without LaMelo Ball, perhaps for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so that the fact that they're still playing very well without him on the floor, it just shows you how, deep, good, pretty talented team the Hornets are. And look, this should be very interesting with Boston. Look, Boston have had their issues, so we'll see if they can bounce back because there's definitely going to be heads are going to be rolling, in Boston if they lose this game to the Hornets on Sunday. Another game that I'm looking forward to, Sid, Memphis and Philly at 6 o'clock. If you guys, if you went to church or have you had your dinner. John Morant versus Ben Simmons. That should be a fun one. And look, I mean, that should be. Look, Memphis is sort of like kind of right there. Trying to get into that. They're ninth in the Western Conference playoff race right now. So this will definitely help them in their seeding.
And the NBA TV doubleheader for Easter Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time is the Golden State Warriors at the Atlanta Hawks, followed by the Orlando Magic at the Denver Nuggets. That's at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So some decent action for Easter Sunday for you pro basketball fans. Let's move over to Monday's action for April 5th. You had the Knicks taking on the New Jersey Nets in the battle of the Boroughs on NBA TV. That's at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. This game I'm looking forward to watch. It's the Utah Jazz at the same time. The Utah Jazz will take on the Dallas Mavericks. Call me crazy. I think ESPN, they should have called the lead to see if they could switch this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like this is going to be during the national championship game. So, I'm kind of wondering, okay, how are the Rays going to shake out? Because usually there are no NBA games, but because of COVID, they got to do it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the Utah versus Dallas. I mean, could we be seeing this in sort of sometime in the Western Conference playoffs? We'll see. This should be a lot of fun and a very interesting game, no doubt.
Yeah, so that's the key games you should be looking forward to this weekend in the National Basketball Association. Lakeena, I know we have a few minutes left before we close up shop for this weekend's edition of Second City Sports. As we talk about baseball, as baseball has started for 2021, Commissioner Rod Manfred was quoted in saying that he expected stadiums to be close to full by middle of the summer. Of course, around the country, the certain places are starting to open up, not just stadiums, but restaurants, bars, amusement parks, museums, things along that line. And of course, around baseball opening day, most teams that open up between 20 and 25% capacity. I know Coors Field in Denver, Colorado, they open up to 42% capacity. Yeah. Of course, down in Texas, where the Texas Rangers play, they were open to a house. They will be open to a full house for opening day. Fans still wearing their masks, but it's going to go back down to capacity level after opening day in the Global Life Bank Ballpark. Of course, there were no fans allowed to watch the Rangers last season, but there were fans allowed in there to watch the League Championship Series and the World Series last season in that ballpark. And we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, Lakeena. I did predict that most of the stadiums will be towards full capacity, if not exactly full capacity around the All-Star break, which is in the middle of July. I wouldn't be surprised if it's pushed back a little bit longer to maybe the end of the month or beginning of August, but I'm still going to stick to my prediction as of now. It should be close to full capacity by the middle of July because look here, especially the city that we're broadcasting from here in Chicago, you're saying that maybe Taste of Chicago may be coming back for the summer. Lollapalooza may be coming back, but for this year it's going to be different. Concerts are starting to be scheduled at Wrigley Field this summer. So just like around the country, not just here in the city of Chicago, but these cities need money. They need people to start coming back. And that's how we operate in this society. It's a global economy. And so people are getting their vaccines. We want to get back to sort of a normal way of living. We were locked down last summer. You couldn't go anywhere too much. And so people are looking for things to do. And now the weather is trending warmer.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of like hesitant because, I'm not going to go to restaurants. I'm not going to go to bars right now. And, just because I want to see, make sure we get herd immunity because I think that's what we want at this point so that, get more folks get vaccinated. We get herd immunity. So we'll see once people start, getting vaccinated and become more available to folks. We'll see where they go here. I think. Look, I'm sticking to my initial prediction. Like maybe like late August into September, we'll probably get full capacity, or at the very least somewhat full capacity, because unfortunately numbers are starting to spike here in Illinois and especially in some other parts of the country. So that's why I'm thinking that maybe folks are kind of like sort of kind of like being hesitant on doing these type of things right now. So. I hope so. But look, I think Raj Goodell said that he thinks that their stadiums are going to be full capacity, or at the very least almost full capacity. That's probably more realistic for them because by then, more and more people probably been vaccinated, get herd immunity, and that. I think that by then, some of our friends, who work in media, who covered the Bears and other NFL teams, they're getting vaccinated. So, we're probably going to be seeing more and more of this. And I'm sticking by my initial prediction. I think by late summer, maybe like late August or into like mid-September, by the time the NFL starts, I think we'll probably seeing full crowds. That's probably, I would think, the probably more realistic shot.
Yeah, in all due respect, I hope you're wrong. I hope my prediction becomes correct. Nothing personal, but hopefully sooner rather than later. That was my initial quote. Sorry, my brain works that way sometimes, folks. But I hope it's sooner rather than later. But like I said, people are getting vaccinated now. Which the calendar just turned April, so like I said, we're seeing more old places that have been shut down used as vaccination sites, so you could vaccinate thousands of people a day, whether it's the one-shot vaccination or the two-shot vaccination. So it's great to see it. Like I said before, it's all part of a plan. And now getting back to baseball, especially if you're the White Sox, I know their home opener is this upcoming Thursday against the Kansas City Royals. They're expected to have close to 10,000 people, I believe, there. Yeah. So I think it's still available, I think, from what I've heard.
Yes.
And so, but assuming that this team gets out to a hot start, and assuming that everybody does what they're supposed to do, talking about wearing masks and social distancing, is for the most part we've been doing that. Especially the White Sox, as well as I do, Lakeena, they depend on crowd support. This as well as I do. And I had this argument with Kenneth Davis of Now That Davis show in the Under Center podcast for NBC Sports Chicago, who covers the Bears. We talked about this in the past. Sox fans will show up when the team is winning, and you are showing them that you're putting forth the effort to win. When you taking a step back and you don't care about winning, the fans won't show up. You can use that argument both ways. But this team is winning, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. The fans will come out, and with the more people getting vaccinated as we head down, as we beginning spring here, and before we get to summer, I think capacity will open up, not full, but you may open it up a little bit, hopefully by Memorial Day, maybe by early June. But if this team is winning, there will be more demand for tickets. And if you're the White Sox, you want those fans in there. Hopefully, Chicago's mayor, Miss Lori Lightfoot, will approve it, and there's less of a risk from catching it because more people will be vaccinated by then. And so you just let people enjoy their lives and again, let them get back to do what they what they want to do, enjoy life, enjoy a baseball game, and getting back to some of the things that we used to do. Like I said before, everything's not going to be the same, but let's get back to close to normal as possible.
And that'll be interesting to see if that comes. I think look, we're almost there. Like I said, we're turning the corner.
Yeah.
We're kind of going down the home stretch. I think people just need to be patient. If you want to get vaccinated, you can, or hopefully people around you can get vaccinated. So that way, herd immunity, and hopefully we can get back to some type of normalcy, because I think people want it. I think people are kind of running out of patience. But look, we gotta stay the course, folks. Let's get. We're almost there. Let's get there, and hopefully we can do that sooner rather than later. I'll be happy to be wrong if that's the case, but I think that's probably what the direction we're gonna go.
And we were in a different situation last year, obviously, Lakeena, where we said at the time the NFL, what they had was time. We saw what happened. Only a couple of teams that let fans in the stands at the start of the season. Of course, we saw that increase during the playoffs with Buffalo, Green Bay, and Tampa Bay was one. I think
Kansas City
as well during the regular season. So you had a few teams in there, but the majority of the teams, including here in Chicago, didn't let fans in at all. So that's going to be different. Thank goodness for this year. Well, I predict right now it's going to be full stadiums. You know this as well as I do, Lakeena. The NFL, it's the shield. They could do what they want to do. Like you said, more vaccines obviously would have been out by then. The majority of people would have been vaccinated. So I'm sure there'll still be some guidelines here and there somewhere. But by the time the preseason kicks off in August, you'll probably see a little bit more people, because you have, especially in cities like here in Chicago, we didn't have an NFL preseason last year at all. So I think the attendance will be a little bit more higher during the preseason. One, because it's 3 games, and number two, people who haven't been to a football game in a year will be so happy to go. But once the regular season starts in September, now with the extra game, people will just be happy to go.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the $50 million question. How long will it take before we get to that full capacity? And I think, like I said, I think by mid-September, I think all the NFL stadiums will be at full capacity, or at the very least 90% capacity. Because I'm sure there's going to be some, depends on the
local. At worst,
yeah,
I'd say 100%, but at worst 90%.
Yeah, because there's going to be some little fish that are going to kind of want to sort of do it very slowly and rolling things out like the vaccine rollout has been. They're going to do the rollouts for the crowds, and hopefully we won't end up being like France. They've had to close the borders again, and now everybody, they got a mask mandate, and they're basically back to where they were about this time last year. So hopefully that won't be the case here in the States. But again,
I'm cautiously optimistic, but I don't think it's going to be the case here, because like I said, everything is affected with economically. So, and we can't afford to do that right now, especially in this country. But also, too, before we move on, pay attention to college football too, especially down south.
Yes.
We saw huge crowds last year. Of course, it wasn't a sellout, but especially those games in Clemson and Alabama. They didn't have full crowds. So they had not the smallest crowd in school history. And you saw the stadium look, especially in those aerial shots. You're not, as I said at the time, you're not going to see that again. And so I think, like I say, if we continue to do what we're supposed to do safety-wise, we'll give full crowds coming this fall for both college and pro. But pay attention to college.
Yeah. I think especially with last year with the Big Ten and some of the other conferences, I know out west in the Pac-12 they couldn't do it. I think the American Conference, I think some states were able to have crowds, but some states weren't. So again, at this point, it's all going to be like, I think people are just going to have to be patient. It's a long way to figure out what's going to happen between now and August when these guys start practicing. They're doing spring practices at some limited capacity right now. So I'm thinking that it'll be very interesting to see what they do with this, because like you said, Sid, I mean, not having that, having the crowds there last year in a lot of these places. I mean, it's hard. It was hard to see how, these guys were able to do it. I mean, I know in the Big Ten, I think in some states, they only allowed, I think, like family members and close friends. They limited that. So it'll be interesting to see what they do here. I think that, I'm thinking that probably by then, like I said, we were talking about late August or early September. So I think by that time, I think we'll probably be seeing full crowds for college football and pro football.
Yeah. That's my prediction. I think so too. But like I said, you have time, and then school would have been started by then in terms of college football with the students. So I know some of these colleges are requiring students to get vaccinated before entering college. I know that's a whole nother debate here and there, so we won't get into that here. But let's be real, Lakeena. Probably the majority of the student population will be vaccinated by then. And like I said, you will get those full crowds just based off of that alone.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, and I'm looking forward to it. So let's hope that that'll be the case for them. So
yes, and those television networks, CBS, Fox, NBC, I'm talking about for both college and pro, they need those crowd shots. Those were real ugly crowd shots last year for both college and pro. As we said to you before, folks, sports, especially now more than ever in the era that we're living in right now, it is presented as a television show. And without live crowds, you have nothing. You saw all these broadcasts from last year, especially with baseball. I was watching and listening to the local announcers on Thursday's opening day took place in baseball. We will never take the fans for granted again. And a couple of them said it without saying it, pumping up the crowd noise, it just wasn't the same and all that. So these networks cannot wait. I guarantee freaking you that they cannot wait to have live fans in these stands as we sticking with college and pro football. You'll get it for pro football, but like you said, you get it for college football too, because it was weird last year outside those games in the South that I mentioned, Alabama, Clemson for sure.
Yes.
It wasn't full, but it looked full because of the way the fans were sitting, how they had them distance. I'm using air quotes for those listening exclusively on our podcast, but having full crowds at these college games, as we mentioned before, we won't get too deep on this episode, but those small college towns depend on that economic boost with the tickets, the souvenirs, the restaurants, the bars, the souvenir shops, and all that. If they don't have that, like many of these small college towns last year, they didn't have that. They suffered.
So again, that's why we'll definitely see some type of big crowds. Maybe not at 100% at first glance, but I think definitely going to be like 90% at most, at worst. So I'm sure we'll be seeing that for a lot of these college towns because, like you said, a lot of these college towns, they need the money. That's where they make their revenue for the year. So hopefully we can get back to that type of normalcy too.
Yes. Lakeena, before we close out, I know you want to give your visual and verbal review of course, TV1, the cable channel, has a series called Unsung, which they profile old school artists from the R&B, hip hop, and gospel world. Of course, last week's episode was Layla James. I had to catch up on that this weekend. Of course, this week's episode is featuring gospel legend Hezekiah Walker. But 2 weeks ago, the debut episode for the new season premiered, and it featured Morris Day.
Yes.
Lakeena, the floor is yours.
Oh my goodness, just to see all the stuff that he went through and hearing about everything that he went through. I mean, had an abusive, stepdad, and abusive father, I should say, and they he and his sister and their mom, they had to move had to move away from there to go to Minnesota because it was getting too dangerous for them. And look, I think the fact that his relationship with Prince is really what stuck out to me, because if you for those of you who watched it, I mean, just some of the things that he went through. I mean, Prince was sort of like, yes, he was this larger than life figure, even though he was, sort of he was kind of short, but his sort of his power got the best of him. And so he kicked Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis out of the band, The Time, which that they were doing, and they were because they were touring and writing music for other artists, and they kind of went on to better things. And like I said before, Jimmy Jam was like, bye, okay, all right, cool. All right, cool. I mean, look, the rest is history with them. So, and also too, I blame Mr. Day for bringing black, fishnets and black pantyhose to the lexicon. Thank you very much. Thank you very
Great
much.
Music video, by the way, of that song.
Okay, yeah. But I personally blame him for bringing that to the to the hexicon here, but lexicon, I should say. But yeah, I mean, look, it was great. He has like 5 or 6 kids, and he's married now again. He had depression issues with depression and such. So, the fact that he's still making music, the time they're still touring occasionally. Of course, they're not doing it right now because of COVID. When you saw where they filmed it, when they made Unsung, I guess this is probably one of the reasons why this season was delayed, because of the fact that they had to do interviews through Zoom and FaceTime and Skype or whatever, because they couldn't travel to these places. So, it was a great episode. And Sid, I know you didn't get a chance to because we haven't get a chance to talk about it, but what was your synopsis of that episode?
I thought they would spend just a little bit more time on the Prince relationship because they're cousins, and of course, and they did spend just a couple minutes of Morris Day talking about Prince after conversation after Prince died in 2016. But it was nice seeing Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. It was nice to see Jerome Benton. I know he was the front man. He was the one that held the mirror and danced with them and all that. So it was nice to see him again. I wish, unless I missed something, Lakeena, I wish they would have had the white guy on. Where's he at today?
I don't know. Yeah, there were a couple. Yeah, there were a couple of members that they didn't have on there, so I'm a little surprised.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't want to do it, or maybe because of time they didn't have the time to do it. But look, it was great seeing Jelly Bean. Oh, I loved him.
Yes.
I mean, he was amazing.
Yes.
Like,
and Jesse Johnson.
Yes.
He had a great solo career too.
Yes, he did. And look, I mean, I think Jelly Bean. I think he played for a lot of like some of the top artists, R&B artists after they broke up. So all of them actually ended up having pretty good careers. So
yes,
but I mean, the fact that their music is the Times music, also Morris Day, is still he still resonates with people. Folks our age. Everything is sort of I don't know. I think that's why we love the show like Unsung, because it kind of brings back memories. Also, too, that their music still stands even now. I mean, you saw that. Like I said, that they're on. They're all on tour together. So occasionally. So I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what the season looks. I mean, I'll probably check out the Hezekiah Walker one, even though I'm not really a big gospel. I'm looking forward to the one that's coming out in 2 weeks about Keith Washington. That's the one I'm looking forward to. Like I said, those of you who were born in the 80s and 90s, he was probably the reason. Just saying. That's probably how
the
y'all
baby
were conceived.
boom.
Yes,
we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's how probably y'all were conceived. Your parents were conceived y'all during with the Keith Washington verse. So
yes, I have a quick did you know from Morris Day before we get up out of here. And I actually saw this on the Alexander O'Neal episode, Sherelle episode of Unsung, which you can find, by the way, on YouTube. I know I kind of gave it away for those of you that already will know this. Did you know that Alexander O'Neal was supposed to be the original lead singer? And then he wanted paper, as Jimmy Jam said in one of I think in that episode of Unsung with Alexander and Sherelle. I want paper. According to Alexander O'Neal, I need paper. I want paper. And so they told Prince, and Prince like, we need him out. Kick Alexander O'Neal out. Let's bring Morris Day in. Yep. And of course, the rest was history. Of course, Alexander O'Neal had his own drug issues. He's okay now. He had a great career. I think he's still singing here and there, but the rest is history. But Alexander O'Neal was supposed to be the original lead singer of the time, but that didn't pan out because he needed paper. I want paper.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting that we hear all these little nuggets about him, and I think people forget that he wasn't that. Look, Morris Day was not the original lead singer of the time.
Exactly.
And of course, thankfully, he's Alexander O'Neal is still with us, and he's still singing occasionally, but. I think, look, he said that was the worst time in his life when he got kicked out of the band. So,
yeah.
But again, that kind of led his downward spiral. But I mean, I think hindsight. I think that maybe I'm sure if Prince were still with us, I'm sure there were probably a lot of things that he wish he could have done differently. So again, you can kind of look back and say, okay, I guess maybe I screwed that one up, but. I mean, look, the weird things have happened. So it was great to see, Morris Day, and he's still doing his thing after all these years. And I don't know. I mean, it's still, his music still, and at times music still stands and still tests the test of time. So it's a lot of fun.
Yes, this music is a lot of fun. So if you guys have a chance to check out the episode of Unsung featuring Morris Day and Time, please do so. It was just video on demand. I don't know if it's on YouTube yet, but wherever you can find it, please go look at it. It was a very good episode. On that note, you can find yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
And you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter, and at Keena's going to be on the IG. And you can find out, you can watch, the episode of Unsung. I'm sure it'll repeat. So if you miss it, it's fine. And you can listen to all the music there on YouTube.
Yeah. And you can catch Second City Sports on YouTube every Monday and every Friday right here on YouTube at WARR Media. Once again, at War Media right here on YouTube. It's just a thank you to you guys. You can catch the visual version every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube. Once again, at War Media. You can catch our podcast every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor. Once again, every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. Type in that search engine box on all podcast platforms, WARR on Anchor. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, and happy Easter to everyone who celebrates the holiday. Be safe. We're not out of the woods yet, but be safe. If you have family, tell them that you love them. Have a great time with your family. Please social distance. Wear your mask. Be careful. Don't get anybody sick. Please don't. And please, as Lakeena McGee would say, please be very good to each other.
And till next time, holla. And we'll see you.
That's enough. Oh, you slickster, you.
Right, but on serious note, though, for Sid, I'm Lakeena. Have a great Easter holiday weekend, and this has been Second City Sports Zoom style. And stay safe out there, folks. We'll see you next week.
Holla, back at you.